To begin tonight, uh, like we've have in the previous weeks, we've been looking at some of these deeper questions. And one deep question that is similar to what a topic we've covered before about how do we live might be this question you've asked. Uh, I've been forgiven from the Lord. He's forgiven my sins. What do I do now? What do I owe him anything? Do I need to do anything? Uh, I don't know if you guys have ever had that question or that feeling like kind of what's next or what do I do now? But this is actually a really important question because it basically gives the context of the rest of our life. Now that we are forgiven, now that we're a child of God, what do I do? Do I need to do anything or am I just waiting for heaven? Am I waiting for a message to tell me what I'm supposed to do? We're going to try to cover this question tonight. Basically, it's wrapped up in what is my responsibility? What things should I be doing, or what should I be doing now that I'm a believer? So, if you've never had this question before, no problem. But this is actually a big question, and that hopefully is a help to us for the rest of our lives. I know as I was preparing for this, it was a big help to me. So I'm also, as I was preparing for this, it is a big help. So I've already asked you guys this question, but there's actually a problem to this question because it would seem that the answer is kind of you really don't need to do anything, right? You've already been forgiven. You don't need to do that much. It would seem that would be the answer, and even in many religious groups, um, I mean, even within us in Christianity, it is the common practice that there would be some groups of people that are professional, either ministers or people that serve the Lord in a way, and we may think, oh, they are people that serve the Lord, but I don't have to. I'm just a churchgoer. I'm young. I'm busy. I've got a job. I'm sick. You can name all these other things that why I'm not serving the Lord in that sense. But actually, if you go back to the beginning of the church, looking at um, the church in the book of Acts specifically, you see once all these people were saved, there's thousands of people in the church in Jerusalem. Okay, Jews that believed in the Lord were baptized, they were forgiven of their sins. They're now in the church in Jerusalem. Naturally, people started to serve. They had a desire for the Lord, they had a heart for the Lord, so they began to serve. And we see an excellent example of this is a guy named Stephen. He served the Lord. We don't have a whole lot of background about him, but he was one who was serving the Lord. And did he go to school to learn how to serve? Doesn't say. Probably not. It'd be fair to assume that he wasn't doing that. He was just a regular Jew in Jerusalem. And then he received the Lord and he began to serve the Lord. So that was the initial. Everyone was loving the Lord, everyone was serving the Lord. As we see in history, as time went on, it that practice kind of dissolved. And what you found is there is a group of people, a professional group of people that serve the Lord, and then there is the common people. Common people, and then the special people. The word for that would be clergy. It's a class of people that serve the Lord in a professional way. And if you're not clergy, you are laity, the layman. That's where we get that term like, oh, give it to me in layman's terms, meaning give it to me in just common language. And so there became these two classes of people in the church. And that is still very, very common today. You see it everywhere. If you look at the Vatican, it is controlled in a group in a way of people that have different offices, different titles. Um, Even amongst throughout different religions, there's all these different rankings, classifications. But actually, when you look in the Bible, you don't see that. In Matthew chapter 23, the Lord said, when the disciples, they're all competing against one another. They're asking, Lord, who is the greatest among us? And I think it was Peter that might have asked that. And Peter probably wanted to hear Jesus say, Peter, you are the greatest. You are the greatest among the disciples. Peter probably asked that question because he honestly thought he was. Who else would have asked that question? Peter would have been so depressed if he asked that question and the Lord said, Great question, Peter. It's actually Andrew, the person we never really hear about. Andrew is the greatest among it. Peter would have been so upset. Only a person who thought he was the greatest would have really asked that question. But guess what? When supposedly Peter asked that question, the Lord said, "You are all brothers. You have one teacher, which is the Lord, and you are all brothers." Right there, he levels the playing field. In the church, in the body of Christ, we are all brothers, and that includes sisters. There is no special ranking of believers in the body. There's the Lord who is the head, and then there's every other believer on the same level. So those are words from the Lord, and that is how the church started. But as time went on, it actually developed into something of a business or of an organization. You have professionals, and then you have the common people. So I hope you guys see that the common situation today is actually not biblical. It is something that's grown into something else. And so, what does that mean for us? Well, I've got a couple verses I want you guys to read. Okay, so I'm gonna do a technological leap here. I'm gonna share my screen. Here we go. Safari, present. Do you guys see a white screen? Yes, perfect. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. Rachel, you prayed for us, so you're off the hook. You're good. Everyone else, you're up next. Josh, I see you, so you're gonna read this verse for me, if you're okay. Can you read this verse for us? And bro, when you see the bold, speak it with emphasis and with your spirit, okay? How about you give us this verse?
All right. 1 Peter 2:9. But you are a chosen race, a royal priesthood.
Yes, good. Okay, now, Josh, while I have you here, okay. Are you familiar with the term compound words?
I think so.
Okay, good, good. What words do you see in that bold word?
Priest and
Yes,
hood.
yes, yes. Josh, in a few weeks, I'll be proud to announce you will be a sophomore at UCLA. You're moving up to the next level. Good job. So, priesthood is a compound word. Priest, we're going to get into priest in a little bit, okay? But hood implies plural. You are a chosen race, a royal priesthood. More than one, okay? That's what I want us to take away from that. And who do you think? Okay, first of all, who is talking in this Bible, or in this Bible, in this verse, in this book? You're still on the line, Josh. Who was speaking in First Peter?
Uh is it if it's two is it I don't know if it's two Peter, because then it'd be Paul. What might just be Peter?
You're right. It's Peter. Yeah, that's how this one's named. Some of the books are tricky. Some of them are written to people, and that's what the
Yeah.
book is titled to. Or some of them, yeah. I guess we don't have a book called Paul, but you're right. Yeah, this is by Peter to the church. Okay, so Peter is speaking to members in the church, and this, I hope you guys would see, this is to everyone. He wasn't just writing to a special group of people. He was talking to every believer. And I really like the beginning of this verse. You are a chosen race. You guys have all been hand selected, and a royal priesthood. Some other versions have like a kingly priesthood, which means this is something of God's kingdom. This is something of even God's authority. He has chosen us and he has made us a priesthood. Okay, who's up next? I'm going to scroll through here. Kirsten, are you able to read this verse for us?
Yes, Romans 15:16. That I might be a minister of Christ Jesus to the Gentiles, a laboring priest of the gospel of God.
Great. Okay, a laboring priest of the gospel of God. Okay, Kirsten, I'm going to ask you this. Who wrote Romans?
Also Paul.
Paul. Yeah, that's right. So we have First Peter, written by Peter, Romans by Paul. Okay, so now we have two people here, and I'm almost done with this. Item. I'm going to ask Ivan to read this next one. If you're able to read this, how about you read this verse from Revelation, chapter 5, verse 9 to 10.
Sure. And they sang a new song, saying, "You are worthy to take the scroll and to open its seals, or you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our God.
Awesome. Hey, Ivan, I appreciate when I copy and pasted it, some letters did not make the cut. So I lost some letters. I lost and, my A and. Um, there was an F right here. So for you were slain and have redeemed us to God by your blood. So sorry about the typos. Um, the person who wrote this book is actually, it's pretty mysterious. You don't even see it in the title, but in the very first chapter, I think in the very first verse, the author is revealed it's John. So John wrote this, wrote this book. So we have Peter, who told us we're priesthood. Then we have Paul, who said that he was a laboring priest of the gospel of God. And then we have John saying that, speaking to the Lord was slain and he redeemed us to God by his blood out of every tribe and tongue and people and nation, and have made us kings and priests to our God. So we have three people here with the same view writing about us and our status. So I feel like status is actually kind of an important word to remember. What is our status in the New Testament? Your status is a priest. That's what the word says. Whether you feel like it or not, whether you feel qualified, whether you're afraid, whether you're shy, guess what? You are a priest. That's what the Lord redeemed us for. That's what we see in Revelation 5. The Lord, he was slain, and he redeemed us to God by his blood out of all these different groups of people, tribe, tongue, people, nation, and made us kings and priests. So the Lord redeemed us for a very specific reason. It is to be so that we could serve him as priests. And then I think this is, okay, yep, good. Okay, what do priests do? So I hope you guys see this in the scripture. We are priests. But if you're going to be a priest, this would be a great question to ask. What am I supposed to do? How do I know if I'm priesting right? I don't know if that's a word, but you want to know what your responsibilities are. Well, in the Old Testament, we see a lot of rich detail in what do priests do, certain rituals, certain practices, diet, what they wore, how old they were, even like anatomic features, like if they couldn't have any defects, there was how they trim their beard. There are so many details in the Old Testament. Well, how does that apply to us in the New Testament? It applies very much. Actually, all those are a description of the reality that we are experiencing today. But on a very, very basic level, what do priests do? Well, I would say they contact God. What do priests do? They contact God. I didn't put they study God or they know a lot about God, which I'm sure they do, but their primary occupation, the basic principle of what they do is they spend time with God in a very intimate way. Contact implies touching. Contact implies like very, very close, intimate. They spend time with God, personal time with God. That's what a priest does. That's the first thing they do. We may say, oh, a priest is busy. A priest does a lot of things. A priest probably has to prepare items for sacrifices. Priests probably have to teach the law. Priests have to cleanse the sick ones. Those are all things that they're doing. But you could not say that's the principal thing they do. The principal thing a priest does is they contact God. So I would ask you as priests, what is the principal thing that you should do? What is something that you should do every single morning? What is something that we should be reminded hour by hour, minute by minute? What should we be doing? We should be turning to contact God. We can do that through the word. We can do that through having fellowship with one another. I really appreciate praying with the other bros that are in this Bible study. I love contacting God with them. It's a real joy. That's what priests do. They contact God. And then the second aspect, so that's the principal thing to do. But what else do? They bring God to man. First, they spend time with God, contacting God, being filled with God, and then they bring God to man. I think that was my experience as a sixth grader. I was spending the night at a friend's house, and I didn't know it, but my sixth grade friend was a priest. he brought God to me. He told me about the Lord. He told me how the Lord wanted to forgive me of my sins and wanted me to become a child of God. He was I don't know if he knew he was a priest, but I look back on it in my experience in court of the word, he was bringing God to me just by sharing the Lord with me. I'll never forget that night. I was in the top bunk of his bunk bed, and he was telling me about the Lord, and I got God that night. So he was acting as a priest that night, and I think the only way he could have done that is if he actually spent time with God. He was able to. He had a personal relationship with the Lord, and he could share something about that to me, according to his level. You know, he wasn't a theologian. He's a sixth grader. We played video games. We played football together. That's just where we were at. But he had some understanding of the Lord, and he spoke that to me. And so he really brought God to me. So priests contact God, and they bring God to man. And this is our status. I hope that you guys would really see this and even take a look at some of those verses I mentioned. I hope you guys would read those for yourself. Maybe in group time we can take a look at those. I can copy and paste those in the chat. But really spend time looking at that. Really ask yourself, is that really your reality today? Do you really see yourself as a priest, or do you feel that you're not qualified, or do you feel that it's too much for me to be a priest? Oh, it's too formal. I can't do that. But actually, you already are. The Lord purchased you for that. It's just a matter of, are we going to live this reality, or are we going to commit the great folly that we see today, that it's okay, somebody else will serve the Lord. I'll go to church and I'll put money in the offering box, or I'll set up my automatic payment, and that's all I'm supposed to do as a member. No. We are all priests. We're all serving God.